It's time to talk about layers. It's funny I waited this long to introduce this because it's probably the most critical part about Photoshop. But there's things we need to get out of the way first. We can access layers, our palette, two ways. We can go over here to our docked panels, and there's a button there that says Layers, or you can go to Window at the top of the screen and open up Layers. Um, and you can close this or open it however you want to. But whenever you open a file in Photoshop, and everything we've been working on has been contained in what's called the background layer. It's the base layer. And we're able to do a lot to just that background layer. But the kind of the way we want to think about it is whenever we want to add anything to our image or do anything different to it, like even if I wanted to incorporate something new on here and then put like a highlight on that new object, every time I put something new into this file, it needs to be done on a new layer. And some things automatically get new layers. Like if I ever copy and paste anything into Photoshop, it'll make a new layer for it. If I ever use text, like my type tool here, it'll make a new layer for it. If I do what's called floating a selection, which I'll show you how to do in a few minutes, it'll create a new layer for it. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you how this works by opening up the duck image, and I'm going to bring it over here and combine it with the dune. So there's different ways to do that. I'm just going to separate these files so we can see them separately here. And one way to do it, you can just grab your Move tool and click anywhere on the first file and literally drag it over and drop it. See where my cursor is getting ready to let go? Drop it on the base file, on the background layer of that file. And when you do that, it creates a new layer for it. And the object is on the layer. You can move it around independently, and it doesn't affect the pixels that are beneath it. Now, and once we got it here, we could remove this white background if we wanted to. We could have removed it before we brought it over. If you guys were watching earlier, when we were messing with our selection tools, with something like this, on this white background on this low resolution image, I can grab a magic wand, click on the white, and just delete it, and then deselect it. So I've combined two images together. That's what you do. You just literally drag one image and drop it onto another one. Creates a new layer. Now while it's here, let me kind of show you what we can do just basically with the layers palette. There's some buttons across the bottom. There's a drop-down menu at the top. There's a couple of sliders here for opacity and fill, and there's some buttons right here above where it says layer 1. So, and I'll do this in a few parts so these little movies don't get too long. The first thing are these little eyeballs. I can make whatever is on a layer visible or not. Notice when I drop the eye off of the background, there's a checkerboard that appears. That means once the background's gone, it's like a piece of glass down there. It's transparent. I can bring the duck back up on top of that transparent layer. Pretty simple. I can adjust, and by the way, whenever you want to go to a layer, you literally click on it like this, so you can tell which one has been activated by the one I clicked on. I can also play with the transparency of the object in the layer. I can lower the opacity. See, it's making the duck more transparent. It's easy enough. And they're what are called transparency modes. This is just a normal transparency mode when the opacity is lowering. But I can try one called multiply. And look how that looks different. It takes the colors that are behind the duck and blends them in transparency through the duck. And these all do different things. You can experiment with them. There's one called lighten, darken, and others. There's one called luminosity. It's kind of fun. It kind of takes the pixels on the duck and matches it to the colors that are behind it. There's one called color. Saturation I played with. So you just have to play with these, and they're just different styles of transparency. Some people call them transparency modes. Some people call them blending modes, but it's kind of our first look into a special effect, I guess, in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and put it back on normal. Other things we can do. Oh, I don't want this duck to ever move. There's a little padlock. Now, I'm not talking about the little space next to the word lock. I'm talking about the little padlock there. If I lock that layer, I'm literally locking the layer where I can't do anything to it. I even get a warning message. It says, cannot complete your request because the layer is locked. I can't move this duck, can't do anything to it because I've padlocked it. Now, this lock is a little different, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. If you don't like a layer, you can click on the layer and drag it down here to this little trash can at the bottom of the palette. That will delete it. I'm going to undo that. If you want to make a new layer that doesn't have anything on it at all, there's several ways to do it. You can click this little button next to the trash can. Click that, creates a new layer, in this case layer 2. I'm going to delete it. The other way to do it, all these palettes have this little kind of obscure drop-down area right over here. See this little arrow right in the upper right-hand corner? I can click on that, and a little list pops up, and at the top it says New Layer. There's another way to do it. You can name it here if you wanted to. Same thing. Want to get rid of that. And you can also make a copy of a layer. I could grab layer 1 if I wanted to have 2 ducks. I can drag that layer down and drop it on this little icon next to this little trash can in the bottom of the palette. Now I have 2 duck layers. Okay, so that's basically what we're looking at here. Now I'm going to show you more in the next section.